In the peaceful, tree-lined streets of Maple Grove, everything seemed calm and quiet. Most of the neighbors kept to themselves, enjoying their well-kept homes and neatly trimmed lawns. But there was one person in the neighborhood who always seemed to find a way to stir up trouble, Karen. Everyone knew her as the overzealous enforcer of the Homeowners Association, HOA, rules. If you didn't follow every single regulation, you could be sure she'd be there to point it out. Sam had lived in the neighborhood for years, enjoying the peace and tranquility of suburban life. The house was just big enough, and the backyard had a small garden that Sam took pride in. Life was simple, and it suited them just fine. However, for the past few weeks, something had been bothering them. Every time Sam came home from work, they found their trash can knocked over. It wasn't just once or twice, it happened repeatedly, and every time, it was more than just an accident. Sam was no stranger to frustration, but this felt different. Each time they'd return home, the sight of their garbage spilling across the yard added to the mounting irritation. It wasn't just the mess that bothered Sam, it was the fact that it kept happening. It was as if someone was deliberately messing with their things. And every time Sam cleaned it up, they couldn't help but notice that Karen was always around, as if watching from across the street. The first time it happened, Sam brushed it off. Maybe the wind had knocked the can over, they thought. But when it happened again, they began to feel uneasy. The third time it occurred, Sam noticed something strange. The trash was knocked over in a very specific way. The lid wasn't just off, it was placed neatly on the grass beside the can. It seemed deliberate, almost as if someone had been trying to send a message. That's when Sam began to suspect that Karen was behind it. She was always so quick to point out even the smallest infraction of the rules, and she had a way of making people feel like they were constantly being watched. Sam had never done anything to upset Karen, at least, not directly, but it didn't seem to matter. It was as if Karen had made it her personal mission to make Sam's life a little more difficult. Sam decided they had enough. They weren't going to let Karen keep pushing them around without doing anything about it. But what could they do? Confronting Karen directly might only make things worse. Sam wasn't a confrontational person, and they didn't want to cause any unnecessary drama in the neighborhood. Still, something needed to change. The next morning, after yet another trash can incident, Sam came up with a plan. It wasn't going to be something loud or aggressive. No, Sam was too smart for that. The idea came to them after a long day at work when they were sipping coffee on the front porch, staring out at the neat row of houses. What if they could stop Karen from messing with their trash without her even knowing it? What if they could do something clever, something she wouldn't expect? The more Sam thought about it, the more the idea began to form. They knew they needed to act fast before things got any worse. But first, they would need to gather some information. Sam spent the rest of the evening researching different ways to protect their trash can from future disruptions. It didn't take long for them to find a few interesting ideas. One stood out above the rest: motion sensors. It seemed perfect for what Sam had in mind. If they could set up a system that would trigger a loud alarm when the trash can was tampered with, it would surely make Karen think twice before getting close again. The thought of Karen being startled by an unexpected sound brought a small smile to Sam's face. They could almost picture it: Karen, walking across the yard, only to be met with the shrill cry of an alarm that would send her running back to her house. Sam knew that Karen would not be able to resist the temptation to continue messing with their property, and they were more than ready for her this time. That night, Sam couldn't sleep. They stayed up late, sketching out their plan, figuring out the best way to set everything up without Karen noticing. They weren't sure if it would work, but they were determined to give it a try. They couldn't let Karen continue to get away with her petty behavior. It was time to put their plan into action. The following morning, Sam woke up early with a single thought in mind: they had to catch Karen in the act. The idea of her sneaking around their property and causing trouble had gone on long enough. This wasn't just about a knocked-over trash can anymore, it was about standing up for their right to live peacefully without someone constantly interfering. Sam knew they needed solid proof to confront Karen, or else it would be nothing but a series of wild accusations. After a quick breakfast, Sam went outside to inspect the damage. Their trash can had once again been knocked over, but this time, there was something different. The lid was placed carefully on the grass, exactly where it had been the last time. Whoever was doing this had a method. This wasn't a random act of carelessness, it was intentional. Sam felt a flicker of anger, but it wasn't just anger anymore. This was frustration building into determination. Karen would no longer get away with this. Sam decided to take action. They immediately went to the local hardware store to purchase a security camera. The camera was small, easy to install, and would capture any movement near the trash can. Sam was careful to choose one that could be hidden, so Karen wouldn't notice it right away. As they walked through the aisles, Sam felt a sense of calm settle in. This was the first step in their plan, and they were confident it would work. When Sam got home, they wasted no time. They carefully set up the camera near the trash can, making sure it was hidden from view. It didn't take long to position the camera in a way that would capture Karen's every move without alerting her. The angle was perfect, anyone who tried to mess with the trash could be clearly seen on film. Sam smiled to themselves. They were one step closer to getting the answers they needed. That evening, Sam sat down in front of the computer, waiting for the footage to reveal what they already suspected: Karen was the one behind it all. The camera had been running for hours, and Sam's patience began to wear thin. It wasn't until late in the night that they finally saw it: Karen, in all her glory, sneaking out of her house in the dead of night. She was as quiet as a shadow, moving with purpose toward Sam's yard. Sam leaned forward in their chair, heart racing as they watched Karen approach the trash can. Karen glanced around, ensuring no one was watching, before she pushed the can over with one swift motion. She didn't just knock it over and walk away, she made sure the lid was carefully placed beside the can, just as it had been every other time. Sam felt a cold chill run through them. This wasn't a simple act of irritation, it was personal. Karen was making sure Sam knew she had control. Sam paused the video, their mind racing. This was it: Karen had been caught red-handed. It was clear that Karen had been the one responsible for all the trouble, but Sam needed more than just this footage. They needed to understand why Karen was doing this, and more importantly, how to stop it once and for all. Sam spent the next few hours rewatching the footage, taking notes, and figuring out what to do next. They needed to come up with a plan that would outsmart Karen completely. Simply confronting her might make her defensive, and Sam wasn't in the mood for another long, uncomfortable argument. No, Sam needed something clever, something that would make Karen back off without her even realizing she'd been outwitted. As Sam continued to watch the video, they had an idea. What if they could use Karen's own tendency to overstep her boundaries against her? The more Sam thought about it, the more the idea seemed perfect. They didn't need to just protect their trash can, they needed to make sure Karen would never want to touch it again. The next day, Sam went back to the store. They bought a few more supplies: motion sensors, a loud alarm, and some wiring. With everything in hand, Sam began to plan out the next phase of their mission. This wasn't just about stopping Karen, it was about sending a message. Sam wasn't going to let anyone walk all over them, not even the overzealous HOA enforcer. Later that night, after a full day of preparation, Sam sat down to begin installing the devices. They attached the motion sensors around the trash can, making sure they were hidden but effective. The alarm was connected to the sensors, and Sam made sure that it would emit a loud sound if anyone tried to mess with the can. The whole setup was nearly invisible, so Karen would never see it coming. As Sam stepped back to admire their work, they couldn't help but smile. This was going to be good. If Karen tried to knock over the trash can again, she would have no idea what hit her. Sam could already picture the scene, Karen creeping across the yard, thinking she was going to pull the same trick again, only to be startled by a loud, blaring alarm. Sam chuckled at the thought. It wasn't cruel, but it was definitely clever. The final piece of the puzzle was the camera. Sam connected it to their computer, making sure they'd be able to capture the moment when Karen finally took the bait. They couldn't wait to see how she would react. Sam had no idea what would happen next, but they knew one thing for sure: this was going to be the last time Karen ever touched their trash. The next few days passed with a strange sense of anticipation. Sam had set everything up: the motion sensors, the alarm, and the hidden cameras. Now, all they could do was wait and watch. Every morning, Sam would wake up and check the camera footage, hoping for a glimpse of Karen's sneaky behavior. But each day passed without incident, and Sam began to feel a bit of doubt creeping in. What if Karen had already moved on? What if the whole thing had been a misunderstanding? But deep down, Sam knew that Karen couldn't resist. It wasn't just about the trash can, it was about control. Karen had always had a need to dominate, and Sam wasn't the first person in the neighborhood to fall victim to her petty actions. Sam's confidence grew as they reviewed the footage from the previous days. No, Karen hadn't given up yet. It was only a matter of time before she tried again. That night, Sam set the trap. The trash can was in its usual spot, right by the sidewalk. The motion sensors were ready, and the camera was positioned to capture every angle. Sam sat inside their house, eyes glued to the computer screen. They had a feeling this would be the night. The sky was dark, and the neighborhood had quieted down. It was the perfect time for Karen to strike. As the minutes ticked by, Sam kept a close watch, their heart racing with anticipation. It wasn't long before they saw movement on the monitor. A shadow flickered across the screen, and then there she was, Karen. She was sneaking toward the trash can, just as Sam had expected. Sam held their breath, watching closely. Karen paused near the can, glancing around to make sure no one was watching. Sam could almost hear her thoughts: she was about to pull the same trick she had done so many times before. Sam could see the smirk on Karen's face, as if she believed she was going to get away with it again. But this time, things were different. This time, Sam had prepared. The moment Karen touched the trash can, the sensors activated. A loud, shrill alarm pierced the night air, echoing through the quiet street. The sound was jarring, unexpected, and completely startling. Karen jumped back in shock, her eyes wide with confusion and surprise. For a moment, she stood frozen, unsure of what had just happened. Sam couldn't help but smile, even though they were watching from behind a screen. This was exactly what they had hoped for. Karen looked around frantically, trying to figure out where the sound was coming from. She glanced at the trash can, then toward the house, her face turning red with embarrassment. The alarm continued blaring, and Sam could almost see the frustration building up inside her. This wasn't how it was supposed to go. She was supposed to have knocked over the trash can and walked away unnoticed. Instead, she had set off an alarm that made her the center of attention. From the safety of their house, Sam watched as Karen quickly retreated, walking briskly back toward her home. She glanced over her shoulder one last time, hoping no one had seen her, but Sam knew that the neighbors had undoubtedly heard the noise. The whole neighborhood was probably awake by now. Karen would have a hard time explaining her actions, especially after the loud alarm had drawn so much attention. Sam leaned back in their chair, a sense of satisfaction washing over them. The plan had worked perfectly. They had caught Karen in the act, and there was no way she could deny it now. But more than that, Sam had sent a message. Karen couldn't just walk around intimidating people anymore. Not when Sam had outsmarted her. The next morning, Sam woke up early, eager to see if there would be any fallout from the night's events. They checked the camera footage again, and sure enough, there was Karen, rushing back into her house, clearly shaken. Sam had to stifle a laugh. It was one thing to hear the alarm blaring, but it was another to watch Karen's flustered reaction on video. She looked like she had just been caught in the middle of a crime. Sam had hoped the alarm would be a wake-up call for Karen, but what came next was even better than they had imagined. By mid-morning, neighbors had started to mention the strange noise they had heard the night before. Sam had already received a couple of curious texts from people asking if everything was okay. The neighborhood was small, and word traveled fast. It wouldn't be long before Karen's little stunt became the talk of the block. Sam felt a mix of excitement and relief. The whole situation had been stressful, but now they were in control. Karen had underestimated them, and it felt good to have the upper hand for once. They had put up with Karen's behavior for far too long, and now she was the one who was embarrassed. As the day went on, Sam noticed something odd. Karen had been unusually quiet. She didn't come out to check her mail, nor did she take her usual stroll around the neighborhood. It was almost as if she was avoiding everyone. Sam couldn't help but wonder what was going through her mind. Did she realize she had been caught? Did she understand that her little games were over? Sam smiled to themselves. They knew this wouldn't be the last time they crossed paths with Karen, but for now, they had won. The battle was over, and Sam had emerged victorious. The trash can would stay upright, and Karen would think twice before ever trying to mess with Sam again. After the success of the previous night's alarm, Sam felt a strange sense of satisfaction. It wasn't just about the trash can anymore. It was about showing Karen that she couldn't push people around without consequences. The plan had worked, but Sam knew they couldn't stop there. They needed something even more foolproof. If Karen couldn't be trusted not to mess with their property, Sam needed to make sure she couldn't get away with it again. Sam spent the next day doing research. They knew they had to step up their game. The motion sensor and alarm had been effective, but Sam felt they needed a more permanent solution. They wanted to make sure that even if Karen somehow avoided the alarm, she wouldn't be able to pull off her usual tricks again. They needed to outsmart her completely. That evening, after dinner, Sam sat at their desk, browsing through websites that sold security equipment. They read through product reviews, comparing different kinds of motion sensors and cameras. Sam was looking for something that would blend in, something that wouldn't be too obvious but would still do the job. Finally, they found the perfect solution, a hidden camera system with motion detection and an additional sound feature. It would be subtle enough to avoid suspicion, yet powerful enough to catch any future mischief. Sam placed the order, and by the next afternoon, the package had arrived. With everything in hand, Sam couldn't wait to get started. They had a vision in mind, something that would be impossible for Karen to ignore. They were going to install a system that would make her think twice before trying anything again. The next step was clear: installation. Sam began by carefully unpacking the equipment and laying out the instructions. They made sure to follow every step, knowing that the success of the plan depended on precision. First, they set up the cameras. They were small and easy to hide, but powerful enough to capture any movement around the trash can. The cameras would be linked directly to Sam's phone, so they could monitor everything in real time. Next came the motion sensors. These sensors were the key to making the whole system work. Sam attached them to the sides of the trash can, ensuring they would pick up even the slightest movement. The sensors were connected to the cameras, so if anyone came near the trash can, the cameras would automatically start recording. Sam also made sure the cameras had a sound feature that would go off if there was any sudden movement. This would be the final touch. If Karen tried to knock over the trash can again, the sound would alert her that she had been caught. The entire setup took hours, but Sam was determined to get it just right. As they worked, they couldn't help but imagine how Karen would react when the cameras caught her in the act again. Sam knew it was only a matter of time before Karen would try to mess with their trash once more. And when she did, she would be in for a surprise. Once the installation was complete, Sam stepped back to admire their work. The trash can looked the same as it always had, but now it was surrounded by a network of hidden cameras and sensors. The best part was that Karen would never see it coming. She would think it was just another regular trash can, but this time, it was equipped with everything needed to capture her every move. Sam felt a rush of excitement. They had been careful not to make the setup too obvious. The cameras were discreet, and the sensors were hidden well enough that Karen would never know she was being watched. If she tried to mess with the trash can again, the system would catch her in the act, and there would be no denying it. Sam was ready for whatever Karen had planned next. The following days passed slowly. Sam couldn't help but check the cameras every few hours, even though they knew Karen hadn't had a chance to act yet. They were eager for the moment when everything would fall into place. But each time Sam checked the footage, the trash can remained undisturbed. It was as if Karen had learned her lesson, or so Sam thought. Then, on the fourth day after the installation, Sam returned home from work to find something unexpected. The trash can had been knocked over again. Sam stood still for a moment, staring at the mess. The lid was lying on the grass, just as it always was. At first, Sam felt a surge of frustration. After all the effort they'd put into setting up the system, Karen had still gone ahead and messed with the trash can. But then, Sam noticed something strange. The trash can hadn't been completely knocked over as usual. The lid was placed in a way that suggested it had been moved carefully. And then it hit Sam, this wasn't just a random act of rebellion. Karen had figured out that something was different. She must have seen the cameras and sensors when she tried to knock the can over, but instead of backing off, she had done the exact opposite. She was trying to outsmart Sam. Sam's heart raced. This was no longer just about catching Karen in the act. This was about winning. They couldn't let Karen think she had the upper hand. Sam quickly reviewed the footage from the cameras and saw exactly what had happened. Karen had indeed been caught on tape, sneaking up to the trash can and carefully moving the lid without disturbing anything else. It was a clever move on her part, but it wouldn't work. Sam had more surprises up their sleeve than Karen could imagine. The game wasn't over yet. Now, it was time for Sam to raise the stakes. The next morning, Sam woke up with a feeling of determination. The previous night's events had been unexpected. Karen had found a way to outmaneuver the hidden sensors and cameras, but Sam wasn't about to let her win. If Karen thought she could outsmart them, she was mistaken. Sam had spent too much time setting everything up to let it all go to waste. After reviewing the footage from the cameras, Sam realized something important. Karen had been clever, but she hadn't completely figured out the system. She had avoided triggering the alarm, but she hadn't been able to completely stop the cameras from catching her actions. The footage was clear. Karen had sneaked up to the trash can and moved the lid without knocking it over. She had thought she was being clever, but in doing so, she had left behind a trail of clues that Sam could use. Sam spent the morning planning their next move. They knew Karen would try again, and they needed to be ready. This time, they had to make sure the system was foolproof. Sam decided to add one more layer to the security setup. They bought a small, discreet device, an infrared motion sensor that could detect even the slightest movement. It was perfect for catching someone trying to move the trash can without triggering the usual alarms. With this new addition, Sam felt confident that Karen wouldn't be able to get away with it again. By afternoon, Sam had everything in place. The new infrared sensor was installed near the trash can, and all the systems were linked together. Now, if Karen tried to move the trash can or mess with it in any way, the system would know. Sam checked the setup one more time, making sure everything was working properly. They couldn't afford to miss anything this time. That night, Sam sat in their living room, watching the screen with anticipation. The house was quiet, the lights were off, and everything was perfectly still. Sam felt a little nervous but also excited. This was the moment they had been waiting for. They knew Karen wouldn't be able to resist trying again. It was only a matter of time before she made her move. Hours passed, and just when Sam was starting to feel the weight of the silence, they saw movement on the screen. A figure appeared on the camera, a shadow moving across the yard. Sam's heart skipped a beat. There she was. Karen. She was approaching the trash can, just as Sam had predicted. Sam leaned forward, their eyes glued to the screen. Karen moved slowly, cautiously, as if she knew something wasn't right. She glanced around, making sure no one was watching, before reaching for the trash can lid. This time, Sam was ready. They could see the infrared sensor lighting up as Karen approached, tracking her every movement. Karen's hand hovered over the lid, but just as she was about to touch it, the alarm went off. A loud, high-pitched noise erupted from the motion sensors, startling Karen. She jumped back, looking around in confusion. Sam couldn't help but smile. The system had worked perfectly. Karen had been caught once again. The alarm continued blaring, and Sam could see Karen's face turn red with frustration. She looked around frantically, trying to find the source of the noise, but Sam knew she wouldn't be able to find it. The cameras were hidden, the sensors were carefully placed, and Karen had no idea what had triggered the alarm this time. Sam could see Karen pacing back and forth in front of the trash can, her mind racing. She knew she had been caught, but she didn't know how. Sam watched as Karen looked over her shoulder toward her house, then back at the trash can. She seemed to be debating whether to leave or try again, but the sound of the alarm kept her frozen in place. For a moment, Sam considered confronting Karen directly. But then they realized that was exactly what Karen wanted. She thrived on drama, on confrontation. Sam didn't want to give her the satisfaction. Instead, they decided to let Karen deal with her embarrassment on her own. Karen stood there for what felt like an eternity, looking defeated. She finally turned around and started to walk back toward her house, glancing nervously over her shoulder one last time. Sam could see the anger and frustration in her face, but there was nothing she could do now. The game was over. The alarm finally stopped, and Sam let out a sigh of relief. They had done it. The system had worked flawlessly, and Karen had been caught in the act once again. Sam felt a rush of satisfaction. This wasn't just about the trash can. It was about standing up to someone who thought they could control others. Karen had learned the hard way that Sam wasn't going to be intimidated any longer. The next morning, Sam went outside to inspect the damage. The trash can had been left alone, the lid placed carefully back on top. There were no signs of tampering, no signs of Karen's usual tricks. It was as if she had finally realized she had been outplayed. Sam smiled to themselves, feeling a sense of peace settle over them. They had won, and Karen had learned a valuable lesson. As for the trash can, it would remain standing tall, untouched by anyone who tried to disrupt Sam's peaceful life. For now, the neighborhood was quiet again, and Sam could finally enjoy the peace they had fought so hard to protect. The days following the incident were filled with a quiet, unexpected relief. Sam went about their usual routine, enjoying the calm that had finally settled over the neighborhood. There were no more late-night trips to knock over the trash can. Karen, the notorious HOA enforcer, seemed to have disappeared from Sam's life. It was almost as if the drama had finally come to an end. Sam couldn't help but feel a sense of satisfaction. They had won, but something about the silence still made them uneasy. Each day, Sam would check the cameras and the motion sensors, just in case Karen decided to try something else. But everything remained still. The trash can stood upright, undisturbed, in its usual spot. There were no more mysterious footsteps creeping across the yard in the dead of night. For the first time in weeks, Sam felt like they could finally relax and enjoy the peaceful life they had worked so hard to protect. But as much as Sam tried to enjoy the peace, something lingered in the back of their mind. They couldn't help but wonder, what was Karen thinking? Did she realize she had been caught? Had she learned her lesson, or was she just biding her time, waiting for the right moment to retaliate? Sam knew better than to think it was over for good. Karen was persistent, and Sam had seen her push the boundaries before. It was only a matter of time before she made her next move. But Sam was ready. They had already proven they could outsmart her once. If Karen tried anything again, Sam would be ready with an even better plan. The following week, things took an unexpected turn. Sam was in the backyard, tending to their garden when they noticed something strange. A letter had been slipped under their door. It was a simple white envelope with no return address, just Sam's name written in neat, unfamiliar handwriting. At first, Sam thought it was just another piece of junk mail, but something about it caught their attention. Curious, Sam opened the envelope and pulled out a single sheet of paper. The message inside was brief and to the point: "I know what you did. You think you've won, but you haven't seen the last of me. You're not as clever as you think." The words were sharp, filled with a sense of anger and resentment. It was clear that Karen hadn't given up. She had seen the cameras, the sensors, and the alarm. And now, she was trying to intimidate Sam in a different way. But Sam wasn't scared. They had already won. This letter was just another attempt at control. Sam sat down on the porch, staring at the letter in their hands. They took a deep breath, feeling a mix of emotions. Part of them was irritated by Karen's persistence, but another part was almost impressed by her refusal to back down. It was as if Karen couldn't stand the idea of being outsmarted, and now she was trying to regain control in whatever way she could. The letter was anonymous, which meant it could have come from anyone. Sam didn't know for sure if Karen was behind it, but they had a strong feeling it was. There was something about the tone, the words, that seemed all too familiar. And if it was Karen, then Sam knew exactly what they were dealing with, a person who couldn't accept defeat. As the days passed, Sam found themselves growing more and more irritated with the situation. The letter had unsettled them, but they refused to let Karen or anyone have power over them. Sam wasn't going to back down. They had already outsmarted Karen once, and they would do it again if necessary. Sam decided to take action. They couldn't let Karen get away with trying to scare them. So, they began working on a new plan. This time, it wasn't just about protecting the trash can. It was about making sure Karen knew that Sam wasn't afraid of her. Sam spent the next few days researching ways to make their home even more secure. They added new cameras around the yard, ones that could detect movement from farther away. They installed motion-activated lights, so if anyone tried to approach the house at night, the lights would shine brightly, making it nearly impossible to sneak around undetected. But Sam wasn't done yet. They knew that Karen was likely watching them, waiting for an opportunity to strike. So, they decided to send a message, one that would make it clear that Sam was in control. They printed out a copy of the letter, the one that Karen had sent them, and they taped it to the front door. But this time, Sam added a note at the bottom: "Nice try, Karen. You can't win. Not this time." It was a small, subtle act of defiance, but it felt empowering. Sam knew Karen would see it. The message was clear: Sam wasn't intimidated, and they weren't going to let anyone push them around anymore. The following days were calm. The motion sensors continued to work perfectly, and the cameras recorded nothing out of the ordinary. But Sam couldn't help but feel a sense of dread lingering in the back of their mind. Karen hadn't given up yet, and Sam knew that she would eventually try again. But they were ready. This time, they were more prepared than ever. Sam wasn't just protecting their trash can anymore. They were protecting their peace, their home, and their right to live without fear. And no matter what Karen did, Sam was ready to stand their ground. As the days passed, a quiet tension settled over Sam. They had prepared for the worst, expecting Karen to escalate her behavior or find a new way to cause trouble. But to their surprise, things seemed to calm down even further. The neighborhood, once filled with whispers and side glances, felt more peaceful than ever. Sam's front yard was untouched, and the trash can remained upright, where it had always been. The motion sensors and cameras continued to operate without a hitch, quietly guarding the house. Sam had expected Karen to try again, but the days turned into weeks, and still, there was no sign of her. One evening, as Sam sat on the porch sipping their coffee, they couldn't help but reflect on everything that had happened. The tension had been building for so long, but now, it seemed like all of it was slowly fading away. Sam had always been a peaceful person. They didn't want trouble or confrontation, but they had learned an important lesson: standing up for yourself was sometimes the best way to find peace. Despite the victory Sam felt, a small part of them remained uneasy. Had Karen really given up? Or was she simply waiting for the perfect moment to strike again? Sam knew better than to assume it was over for good, but for the first time in a long while, they felt a sense of control over their own life. That evening, as the sun began to set, Sam was surprised to see Karen walking down the street. It had been a while since Sam had seen her at all. Karen was walking briskly, her expression unreadable. She glanced over at Sam's house, then quickly looked away. It was strange, there was no anger in her demeanor, no defiance, just a quiet resignation. Sam watched her for a moment, wondering what was going through her mind. For a brief second, Sam thought about confronting Karen, asking her what had changed. But then they remembered, it wasn't about that anymore. Sam had made their point. They didn't need to get into another argument. They had already proven they could stand their ground. Whatever Karen's next move was, Sam didn't need to be involved in her drama. As the days went by, Sam noticed small changes. Karen didn't seem to be lurking around as she had before. She didn't check the mail every day, and she didn't walk past Sam's house with that familiar air of authority. It was as if she had retreated into herself, no longer feeling the need to assert control over her neighbors. Sam didn't see Karen for nearly a week, and then, one morning, an unexpected letter appeared on their doorstep. It wasn't from the HOA, nor was it an anonymous note. It was from Karen herself. The handwriting was neat, but there was a sense of hesitation in every stroke. Curious but cautious, Sam opened the letter. As they read the words, they could hardly believe what they were seeing. It was short, simple, and to the point: "I want to apologize for the way I treated you. I don't know why I acted the way I did. I guess I got too caught up in everything. You were right, and I was wrong. I won't bother you again." The letter was unexpected, and Sam was at a loss for words. They couldn't help but feel a small sense of relief. Maybe Karen had finally understood that there was no need to compete for control. Maybe, just maybe, she had realized that people didn't have to be enemies to coexist. Sam folded the letter carefully and placed it on the kitchen table, thinking about how much had changed in such a short time. Later that afternoon, Sam saw Karen walking down the street again, but this time, her pace was slower. She stopped in front of Sam's house, hesitated for a moment, and then spoke. "I really am sorry, Sam," she said, her voice softer than it had ever been. "I've been thinking about things. I don't know what got into me, but I just wanted to let you know that I'm done causing trouble." Sam felt a strange mix of emotions: relief, surprise, and even a little pride. Karen was admitting defeat without any resistance. She wasn't trying to blame anyone else or make excuses. For once, she was just being honest. "I appreciate that, Karen," Sam said, smiling gently. It means a lot to me that you're saying this. Karen nodded, looking genuinely apologetic. I don't expect you to forgive me right away, she said, taking a step back. But I just want you to know I won't be bothering you anymore. As she turned to walk away, Sam watched her go, realizing how much they had learned through this entire experience. They hadn't just dealt with Karen, they had found their voice. Standing up for themselves had brought unexpected results, and now, there was peace in the neighborhood. For the first time in a long time, Sam felt like they had control over their own life. The rest of the week passed without incident. The trash can remained in place, untouched, and the motion sensors continued to work quietly in the background. It was as though the past few months of tension had never happened. The calm had returned, and this time, it felt like it was here to stay. Sam couldn't help but feel grateful. They had faced a challenge, stood up for themselves, and emerged victorious. The story with Karen had taught them that sometimes, the most powerful thing you can do is simply take a stand and refuse to let someone push you around. Now, Sam could enjoy the peace they had worked so hard to protect, knowing that they had earned it.